Hello everyone, good evening or good day, depending where you are on the planet actually, and hello to you too, Chris.
Hi, and that could be anywhere on the planet actually.
Absolutely, as from the previous lesson you recall that we had friends from all over the world, from pretty much Australia to South America, from all over Africa and Europe, so it was really a pleasure to be teaching with everyone, to be learning with everyone as well actually, around the world. So hopefully, I'm sure from inside they're going to send you another list of who all our friends are from all around the world. Great. Now, as you know, these two lessons, last week and this lesson actually, are kind of like an early bird session for those who registered earlier. And what we really wanted to do was give a good start next week with the whole World Education Center. So the real lesson number one actually starts next Tuesday. But having registered earlier, that actually gives you guys a bonus. As you recall, the first lesson was a bit of an introduction, and we kind of got to know each other. And the second lesson, we're going to touch a few things that Kabbalah is actually mostly related to from a scientific point of view. But before that, I do believe we have some questions that came in. And as I did promise from the last lesson, I said there is no question that Kabbalah cannot answer. So I'm really looking forward to those questions. Also today, any question you have, please forward them through, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. In the interim, though, let's first get those questions out of the way so our friends can start with a clean slate to the lesson, and we'll have a fresh approach today to how we can look at Kabbalah actually. Go for it.
So we got some questions forwarded to us from Florin was his name, or her name. I'm actually not sure. So they went out of their way kind of to contact the educators or whoever emails that they had at the education center. So we received this, so we wanted to touch this first just to give you the idea. And like Mulu said, there's no question that's unanswerable, because Kabbalah really does relate to everything in life. And you'll see that the more that you start asking questions, so please send these questions. So first,
it's Florin from where?
Florin, and I don't know. It just said Florin, actually. Okay. So if you want to send in, Florin, if you're with us right now, send in where you're from so we can be accurate here. So we'll just kind of go down the list, and then we'll start getting the flow. The existence is all about achieving mushka, or enlightenment, by every soul in this lifetime or plane. Is this the goal?
It is the goal. I'm not sure about this specific lifetime, but actually we're going to touch that topic today, because I made some notes for you guys on how to make a solid approach, how to build a solid approach. And this is not a specific lesson we give in the Education Center, but because, like I said, you guys have registered early for 2 lessons, so what I've decided to do is kind of give you a heads up and a better foundation to start the Education Center, and we're going to touch on that today actually.
Here it's the second question from Florin, and he touches on disease and what's the purpose of disease, and is there any way to heal yourself? How does Kabbalah relate to that?
Well, Kabbalah doesn't relate to that actually, and I'll tell you why. Kabbalah is only relating to one thing, and that's our spiritual existence. Okay, which I'm going to touch on that again today. So you're right, really up there with the. You're really on topic. Basically, what we're talking about in Kabbalah is our existence beyond our senses, okay, beyond our 5 bodily senses, and our bodily life, our corporeal life, is basically an outcome of corporeal existence, and the corporeal sciences actually discover how our body functions. It's called biology. And according to biology, when we have illnesses, we go to a doctor and we try to get it fixed up as best we can. Whether it be Western medicine, whether it be Eastern medicine, whether it be healing through meditation, there are all kinds of ways to actually heal your body. And they do work, okay, they do work. But this is not what Kabbalah is talking about. Kabbalah is talking about something kind of like cut off from this world. And I'm going to actually touch on that again today, right? Is that it?
Sure. So this is from spectrum to spectrum. What are the laws of the universe? Again, this is from Florin. What are the laws of the universe, or the multi-universe? Please teach us these laws.
Absolutely. Look, there are only 2 laws, actually. And in nature, there are only two forces that act on us. is a positive force and a negative force. You know, it's like a battery. You know, one end is the plus, the other end is the minus. And in nature, there are only two forces. A force that gives, a force that takes. And that's why also in our laws of nature, we say that for every force, there's an equal opposite force that exists. And this is exactly how laws of nature works. And our role, actually, by studying Kabbalah, is to find a balance, which we're lacking very much, unfortunately, in human society. And this is why we have all kinds of problems in the world. So it's not very complicated. Our nature is a nature of taking. We like to receive things in order to fulfill ourselves in anticipation of wanting to be happy. And on the other hand, there is another force which we don't relate to much, which is actually giving. And because we don't relate to that force in the same equal manner that we relate to taking, what we do in life, we find ourselves really unbalanced. And we find that our nature of taking causes a lot of problems, because when everybody starts wanting to take without keeping the others in consideration, think about what happens in the world. Everybody's trying to take something from somebody else, so we have a big mess. So those are the only two laws that we really need to understand, because all the rest of the laws in nature are basically an offshoot, an offspring from those two main concepts. Okay? Is that it?
We got some more questions new today. If you want to take that, or do you want let's put a clean slate?
Let's just start with a clean slate now, and then don't worry though, we'll get to those later.
Definitely.
Now today, the topic I wanted to touch on very much was Kabbalah and science. Okay, because we treat Kabbalah as a science in Bnei Baruch, and sometimes when people come to study Kabbalah or any kind of method that might be spiritual, there's a lot of misconceptions about it, because people feel like they need to believe in something, or people feel like they need to see something that they don't normally regularly see, and we have all kinds of misconceptions. All right. However, I'll tell you how we got to the wisdom of Kabbalah as a science and why it needs to be treated as a science. Now, as you may all know, that for thousands of years in our development, what we've been doing in human society is basically trying to figure out how we can balance ourselves in life with laws of nature. All right, so there are the seasons. There's from laws of gravity to the laws of nature, where the sun comes up, the sun sets, and all kinds of laws that govern nature. And within that nature, we're living. So for thousands of years, we're living in this world, and everything that happens around us is kind of influencing us. And what man has been trying to do for thousands of years is, figure out what's going on. Okay? And that's how we developed sciences. Okay? And all our worldly sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, botany, astrology, astronomy, everything that we developed was basically to figure out what's going on and why it's going on. And because we want to know what's going on, we've developed everything, though, according to how our five senses figure things out. Because we're built of five senses. So the best thing that we can really do is try to deepen our five senses. And in order to deepen our five senses, we've kind of invented gadgets like telescopes, microscopes, all kinds of lenses and hearing devices that capture waves, so that we can see or feel or hear or try to, with our five senses, go deeper into reality. However, we've come to such a state through thousands of years of development in science that we really don't understand much, because at the end of the day, all of us feel like there is something beyond us, because the more we kind of discover our lives, the more things we discover in life, we always feel like there's something else concealed behind it. So we're in this merry-go-round that as we discover more and more phenomena in nature, we kind of feel like there's something else to discover. And recently what has happened in science is that we've come to such a level, as scientists describe it, as everything is kind of like a cloud. It's all airy-fairy. And there's actually no material object, but everything is kind of made up of this cloud. Obviously, if we're not scientists and perceive it that way, we see everything as solid. We see life as exactly as it is. So basically, even though science has excelled and exceeded, and we've sent people to the moon and to space and been everywhere, in water, underwater, on top of everything, and we're now going to other planets even, we still haven't really come to the essence of the question, well, what's going to happen to me when I die? Question mark, right? Or, well, where did I come from? Before I was born, what was I? Or was I anything before I was born? I mean, am I just born a few kilograms of meat and that's just how it is? Until I die, I just grow in this body and then end up dead. So our science hasn't really brought us to the main question that causes us a lot of suffering and grief and uncertainty in life. And according to our nature, because we don't know what's really going to happen, what we try to do in any way we can is make the best of it. Okay, man, now making the best of it is obviously something different for everyone. Okay, some people like to have fun, enjoy their life. Some people like to run after a career. Some people just like to relax and don't like working too much. Some people want to discover science. Some people want to be rich. Some people want to just have a small family and have an ordinary life until we die. And basically, because we don't feel like we have an answer to that question, it's mind-boggling, and we actually subconsciously always push it behind us. We just try to forget about it because we don't feel like we really have an answer to that question. And science hasn't really brought anything new for us to understand, because it's only an in-depth analysis of what my five senses can feel. Okay? So all our gadgets we've kind of invented along the way are just instruments for a deeper analysis of what my eye can see, or ears can hear, or my taste buds can taste. But nothing really has been answered with respect to why are we born, how were we born, where we came from, if we came from anywhere at all, and what really happens when we die. So along this confusion for thousands of years of human development, what really has happened is development of beliefs, religions, or philosophies. And if you ask, Google, there's more than 4,000 religions, but it was counted once and there was 3,800 religions in the world. And if you ask anyone who's in a specific religion, if they're devout to their religion, then they'll believe what their religion tells them, because that's what the environment kind of imposed on them. So if we grow up in a certain environment, we become a part of that religion, and we kind of look around us and we feel like all our neighbors or all our friends are kind of also in that religion, and we think, okay, well, this must be it. So, because everybody else around me is in this and they all believe in it as well. However, that's a bit of a problem. When I say problem, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about believing in something that we don't really have a grasp of. And then there are other people who like to fulfill their worldly desires, so they run after money, career, science. They want to be famous, or they want to be, president or prime minister. They want to have some control and rule the world, seemingly. So they have those kind of desires, and just people run after those desires. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you really run after, because everybody ends up kind of dead. All right? And because we still have this big question mark, we need to understand where Kabbalah can help us, and why it is a necessary science for the kind of person who's really asking that question, what is the meaning of life? What's behind it? Because instinctively inside of us there's a sensation that there is something higher. And the wisdom of Kabbalah, Kabbalah actually comes from the word to receive, receiving. It's a science that can allow us to receive and perceive everything else that is beyond our five senses, and that can give us a consciousness, a higher level of consciousness, of existence beyond our five senses. Now, the problem with this is, I know it's going to sound a little, like, oh, airy-fairy, but it has to develop from five senses because we're not born with it. It's something we need to develop. And if you look at it from the point of view that we have to develop, like a talent, right? Let's say we have a little child and she has a desire to paint or draw, okay? Or she has a desire for music. So she has an inclination for music. So the parents want to kind of foster that, and they, send her to music school, or she takes music lessons, and so on, until she really becomes good because she has an inclination to that. Well, in Kabbalah, we need the same kind of inclination. And that inclination is called a dot in the heart. And this is very, very important, because with that we're really not going to be getting anywhere. Now, everybody has a dot in the heart in the world. All of us, okay, the whole of creation. The question is, just like this little child example I gave, has that inclination come out? And the inclination, the sign of that inclination coming out, is a person really wondering about the meaning of life. And if a person is really wondering why he's living, what's the meaning of life, then this person begins to search for an answer. They don't really know. I mean, none of us really knew what we were looking for. We were just looking for an answer. Why am I living? What's the meaning? What's the purpose? Because we're looking at life and, we don't really see much things to run after. And because at the end of the day, we see a graveyard, right? So if I'm going to run around 30, 40 years chasing something, it better be worthwhile. And we see also in the new generation that they don't really want to run after anything because they don't see a point in it, and rightfully so. This is because a discernment inside of us has awoken, and that discernment brings us to searching. When inside of us such an inclination to find the meaning of life appears, then a person who starts to search comes to the wisdom of Kabbalah. This could be after many life cycles. It could be after many years of searching in this world. And all of us, like all our friends who've studied Kabbalah, they generally have been through something. They've been through religion or some philosophy or some, meditation methods, anything. They've been through the, through the loop, let's say, right? They've been searching for an answer. And after they've tested a few methods and so forth, they've found Kabbalah. In order for us to develop this inclination, what we need to have is an approach. And this approach, just like any methodological or scientific approach, needs to be kind of developed by a method of study. So what we need to do now is, if a person has this inclination, this dot in the heart, this point in the heart, who's striving and kind of pinching us all the time about why we're living, what's the meaning of life, then we can start to study Kabbalah and develop that sense. Some people like to call it a soul. Some people call it the sixth sense. In Kabbalah, we call it a screen, a masach, or sometimes known in the books as the intention. And this tool, this new sensory organ, needs to be developed by us. We're not born with it, and that's actually the whole process of rising to a new level of consciousness. And it's pretty much like the same way a child develops its inclination for music, for art, for science or anything really. So the method is not something bizarre. It's not something far-fetched. It's an inclination inside of us which we want to develop. And Kabbalah is a science, it's an approach. Just like teaching music or teaching art or teaching physics. It's a way of studying so we can develop this inclination, and that inclination will allow us to kind of sense what's going on around us. Because our five senses are insufficient to go beyond the boundaries of consequences, because this world is just like influencing us, so I'm only feeling the consequences of what the world is kind of bringing upon me through society, through, I don't know, through weather, through whatever there is in the world. And because we don't feel the reason for things, the cause of the things that are happening, we feel like unbalanced. We don't know how to cope with it, and we don't know what to expect in life. So every next moment in life is pretty much uncertain. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So everybody's living like sitting on a cactus. Okay, we're all on the edge, and the world is not getting any better. Whether you live in the Middle East or whether you live in the US or whether you live in Europe, you're subject to all kinds of things that might just happen. Even terrorism, which just recently we just witnessed in New York, wasn't it? It was New York, and also in Europe we've been witnessing terrorism, and it's like all over the world. So the whole world has kind of become a small global village, like they're saying, and we're all feeling its pressures, whether it's work, family, career, just basically trying to stay alive. For anyone around the world is a big suffering, and this suffering kind of is necessary for developing inside of us this inclination, because this inclination brings out the question in us about why we need to go through these things in life, why we're suffering. So Kabbalists tell us, look, if you have an inclination to find out what the meaning of life is, you need to develop something that you don't have, but that can understand why things happen. And this development of the soul starts with this inclination called a point in the heart, or a dot in the heart. Let me write it down, because you'll hear this a lot. You might as well get to know it. It's a point in the heart. Okay? Basically, it's a desire in us. Okay? And this desire inside us is pinching us. Wants to know why we're living. So Kabbalah first started with a guy nearly 6,000 years ago called Adam. All right? He was the first man, because he was called the first man because he was the first man to discover this science. And he actually discovered it exactly how we're discovering it today. He also asked himself this question. He said, why am I living? What's the purpose of this all? I'm living here trying to make a living, trying to feed myself, the family. Life's hard. I don't know what's going on with the seasons. We're plowing the fields. We don't know if we're going to get any rain tomorrow. I don't know if the next tribe next door is going to start hunting us down for some reason, or going to start some kind of a war between us tomorrow. Everything is uncertain. Imagine living in those days, like 6,000 years ago. The world is like really uncertain. So this guy called Adam was also asking this question. And through his research, and research is an internal thing. This is why it's science. I'm researching myself and my existence in this reality. And this is what Adam did as well. He researched what he was in life. And from that question of why we're living, he discovered something called the laws of nature. And the way he could discover that was in a law. Okay? Florian asked a minute ago, can you explain us the laws of the universe? Well, there's a very, very fundamental law that we're going to learn in Kabbalah, and it's called equivalence of form. Let me write that down as well, because you're going to also see this a lot. Equivalence of form. Okay? It means that I can only perceive things, understand things, and see things or feel things if I have some kind of a form equivalency, if I can sense it. But if I can't sense it, there's nothing to talk about. So Adam discovered that, wow, if I kind of adapt myself to the general laws of nature and kind of skip outside my nature, I can actually feel the force that kind of governs everything. And that force he called nature. And he also called it the creator. Okay? So the creator is also a word you need to know. Now this creator equals nature. Basically, he figured out how his thoughts, his desires were all in a plane that was higher than the corporeal level. And through that height, through that dimension, everything was being influenced in the corporeal dimension. Having discovered that, he was the first Kabbalist. And that's actually what a Kabbalist is. A Kabbalist is not something mystical. You might have read many things about Kabbalists on Google or whatever, but we need to understand what a Kabbalist is. Kabbalist is a person just like you, okay, who wants to discover the meaning of life. And through his wondering, his research, his desire to find out, he begins to develop this inclination that can sense something extra that our five bodily senses cannot sense. This is why it's very important to have this inclination called the point in the heart. Because without having it, it's like trying to explain what a rainbow is to a person who's completely blind from birth. There's just no way. We can't explain to him how the sun sets and how it turns all orange if he doesn't know any other color except the black that he's been born with from birth. And this is exactly how sometimes this wisdom is towards other people who don't have that sensation. So a person who comes to Kabbalah already has this feeling that there is something beyond his sensation that he needs to discover. So this is this little baby that we're all taking care of called the point in the heart. From that point on, a Kabbalist, from that point on, a person who searches and comes to the wisdom of Kabbalah may wish to study. And if he wishes to study, he can study with a group like ours, and he can begin to develop that sense. And within a short period of time, 3 to 5 years, he begins to feel that, yes, there is something outside of me which I can connect with through what I've learned and what I will continue to learn. And just like in life, it takes us many years to grow and to become an adult and to have a grasp of what's going on in this world so I can, stand on my own 2 legs. Same in spirituality as well. Spirituality is nothing, although, this word is a bit, has a few different definitions according to everyone who thinks about spirituality. Spirituality can be anyone who's like doing meditation on a mountaintop to a religious guy. When we're talking about spirituality, basically, we're talking about sensing the world and everything that's influencing the world through this force called the creator or nature. And accordingly, when we develop this sixth sense, like I said, through the study, you begin to, on top of your 5 senses, because we're not losing the 5 senses, we begin to develop an understanding of why things happen to me. And then I can begin to feel how things will eventuate, and then I can balance myself according to the influence of this higher nature, which I can now adapt to. And this lack of adaptation to this higher level of existence, which we feel that there is some kind of higher level of existence, but we don't really, live in it and feel it on our flesh. This is why we have a lot of problems in life, right? Because we're just not balanced with it. But because now we can study and develop this soul, we can begin to kind of harmonize ourselves in this system called reality. And the development of this sense called the soul brings a person into a new level of existence, and it actually makes him independent of his corporeal existence. This is also why, in our lives, this is also why we die, okay? Dying is a symbol. It's not like we die. Nothing in life disappears, okay? So I know some people are like afraid of dying and this and that, but really there's nothing to be afraid of. Just like my skin, okay? Sometimes we shed skin when we get a tan or whatever, and our skin falls off because our skin cells are dying off. But underneath it, new ones are growing, right? Same in our body. Every day, many cells die and many new ones are born. But my body isn't really dying, is it? It's still alive. So same with our existence as well. What happens is, as we're transiting through life with all its events and so forth, from birth to death and all the life cycles and so forth, what really happens is this point in the heart, this inclination starts to develop until we come to this level or point where we make a new level of existence out of it by studying Kabbalah, which is called a soul. And then, while a person living in this world also begins to live in the sensation of a soul. And then once you live in that sensation of a soul, that's an eternal feeling. It's beyond our 5 corporeal senses. And you begin to live in that sensation. And even if you die, that sensation never really disappears. And this is what many books that have been written try to, tell us, that we have a soul and so on, and we're going to go somewhere after death, like heaven or hell or whatever. It's just a misunderstanding of what really we should be doing and we should be occupying ourselves with in this world. And because of this misunderstanding, we have a lot of mishaps in life, a lot of suffering. But suffering is also a process of learning and developing. Obviously, it would have been, great if we were doing it under better circumstances in the world, because if you look at it, we haven't had any seizure of wars for thousands of years. It's just like one war after another. It just never stops. We always have problems in life, sickness, getting a job, everything, in life. Sometimes everything all of a sudden pressures us. But this pressuring, like I said, begins the birth of a new state called the dot in the heart. All of humanity will have to come to that level of consciousness. Some, like yourselves, may wish to continue and study and get this done. And some who haven't awoken yet in the world, as you can see, they will come after as well. But the destiny of humanity, the purpose of all our creation, is actually come to a higher level of existence. Because we are all part of this reality. And our biggest problem is that we keep ourselves a part of reality, like separated from it. We look at life and say, well, this is the world and this is me. Okay? And we never really look at ourselves as, wow, this is the whole of reality and I'm in that reality. So Kabbalah is also going to give us a new angle of looking at life and understanding it from a different perspective than what we've been really taught and have been raised with throughout our childhood. So all of this development, all of our lives, everything that we're going through will bring us to this development. And this is what Kabbalists are throughout the history. So Kabbalists throughout the history who've attained this thing called a soul, have written about it in books. They're also scientists, but they're scientists with a different sensation. And just like two people who have a pair of eyes can see the same thing, Kabbalists who've also developed that sixth sense can also see the same thing. They can see the same things, feel the same things, and they can talk about those things which exist in a dimension or in a sensation that we don't have. So just like I can't really describe the colors of the rainbow to a blind person, the Kabbalists are also having a bit of a problem describing to us the spiritual worlds. But that's what they've done. And Kabbalists from thousands of years ago have said that, you know what, humanity, because its destiny is to come to this higher level of consciousness and existence, will develop to such a level that at that period, many people will want to find out the meaning of life. And they've actually dated that to be 1991, 1995, from the book of Zohar, which was written like 2,000 years ago. So those people, those Kabbalists throughout the generations, what they've done, they've patiently paved a path for us. From the writers of the Zohar, from the writer of the Tree of Life, Ari, to Baal HaSulam, Yehuda Ashlag, which I mentioned in the previous lesson, and Rabash, which I've also mentioned, have kind of paved for us a path which we can learn how to develop this sense, because humanity is now asking for this. Why? Because of the suffering that we're going through and the uncertainty and the seemingly purposelessness of life. This inner emptiness kind of brings us to wonder, well, why is it all for? And because Kabbalists have said that our generation from 1991, well, let's say the 90s and onwards, okay, are going to be very ripe for this wisdom, what we really need to do is, as soon as people want to discover the meaning of life, we should kind of get together and study so we can come to the purpose of life and develop this thing called a soul. All right? And basically this is the approach we have. So this inclination inside of us needs to happen, called the point in the heart. I'm just going to summarize that for you, okay, what we've talked about in a nutshell, so you get the drift. Okay? And once this dot in the heart develops, it gives us a sensation that there is something beyond our lives, but we really don't know what it is. And this brings a person to search for the meaning of life. And through one of his searches, generally comes to the purpose, generally comes to the wisdom of Kabbalah. And if his heart settles with the study, then he begins to study, or she begins to study. And once we study, we start to feel changes. We start to look at things in a different perspective. We begin to feel things that we didn't feel before. We began to think things we didn't think of before. We in fact began to think about things in a completely opposite way than what we've been used to all our lives. So the study begins to change us. And it begins to bring us sensations, thoughts that are deeper than what we've experienced before. And through that depth, we begin to discover the cause of things that are happening to us all the time. And this is how we become Kabbalists. And hopefully you'll carry on studying with us, and hopefully you'll also become Kabbalists as well. And the reason it's a science and the approach to as a scientific way is it's a personal science. What does that really mean? It means that I'm studying actually myself and my place in reality, just like I'd be studying, an atom in reality. Okay, for example, physicists, they like to study, laws of physics, atoms, I don't know what else they're studying in there, and so forth, right? They're studying what is inside reality and how this causes that, okay? In Kabbalah, what we're studying is ourselves under the influence of the reality around us. That's why it's a science. This is why we don't have any beliefs in Kabbalah. That's why you're not supposed to believe in anything that's even written. What we do is study methodologically, right, what the Kabbalists wrote, and kind of take their recommendations in order to see if it's really true. Okay? So they recommend us to study in a way, and if we do that, they tell us from beforehand that that's what's going to happen. So we take their advice, like a father gives his children advice, and the kids do it, and then they say, oh my God, Dad was right. So what we do is the same thing. We take the advice, the recommendation of a Kabbalist, who's at a higher level of understanding, and we apply what he tells us as an advice to develop this sense. And then we understand that what he told us was true because he actually went through the same thing. Just like our fathers, our parents went through many things that we're experiencing in life, and they tell us beforehand how things are going to happen. Kabbalists are also doing the same thing with their books. So just like I'm discovering life through experience, through the teachings of this world, from learning from my parents, from learning in school, we're actually doing the same thing for the spiritual world, for the development of the soul. And this is really the concept that we start to, need to build in us as a base, as a foundation, so I can approach the study really in a methodological way and apply it on me like a science. So before we start with the first lesson next week, it's really important for us to stand strong on our two legs with a firm foundation and understand that this is a way of discovering the whole of reality and my place in reality. So there is no room for any airy-fairy beliefs or religious concepts and so forth. The approach must be very concrete, and it must be evaluated in the thoughts, desires, intentions, sensations of everything that a person feels throughout life, and the right way of relating to everything that happens to me so that I can find my way and balance myself along that path. Okay? And this is actually how a person can begin to find peace in life as well, which is actually what we try to do in life with many methods in life. What we try to do is find some kind of stability, peace of mind, but we find that worldly things are very temporary. Okay, so for example, I used to do meditation, right? Meditation really helps. I used to do meditation every morning, and it kept me focused for like half a day. But I knew it was temporary. It was like taking a pill. Okay, I knew that this pill is going to work for a few hours, and that's how it is. But it never really gave me what the cause of the things that are happening to me and how to relate to them. It never gave me that approach. So many things in life are all about kind of pacifying ourselves in order to avoid suffering. But Kabbalah is a method where you pretty much I don't know how to say it, you pretty much have all the tools to kind of take life, from the neck, let's say. Okay, you're ready for life. It kind of gives you all the tools to understand what's happening to you, and you're willing, and not just willing, you're prepared, and you're not afraid to kind of go with that flow. because you learned how to approach things and you actually welcome everything that happens to you. The reason for that is welcoming everything that happens to you becomes an opportunity for further advancing your perception. So the way you look at any problem in life all of a sudden is different than what it was before. You begin to welcome the dramas of life, which many methods try to get you to avoid. But Kabbalah says, hey, if I'm going to get something, let me make the best out of it. And this is why it's such an amazing method. It can take any situation in life, any condition that a person is in, and give that person such an approach to taking that on that he is kind of doing it kind of with pleasure. Imagine having a real big problem and you're delving in it with a lot of happiness and joy, right? Not really what we see in life. But Kabbalah actually gives you the opportunity to build that approach. So it's a very, very interesting way of tackling life, tackling everything that comes to you in order to build a new level of existence, which by default is necessary for us if we want to have a peaceful, balanced life. So the difference between the corporeal sciences and the wisdom of and the science of Kabbalah is basically that. And our approach is pretty much, in a nutshell, what I've explained. And how it develops inside of us is through this desire called the point in the heart. So up to here, okay, this is all in a nutshell, by the way. Okay, this is all in a nutshell. But up to here, have we got any questions, Chris?
Yes, we got tons of questions. I wrote down a couple of things I wanted to sharpen, and it's something that we have heard from the morning lessons with Dr. Rav Michael Leitman. And we're always talking about the same thing. Nothing is really changing. It's just we ourselves are changing. So we hear what's being told. We hear about the new states that we can go through, and we do our inner work, and then we change a little bit, and then what we heard one time before sounds much different, and it means something completely different. These are the inner changes that we go through. And so whenever Mulu was talking about spirituality, I remember that he recently had answered the same question to someone else in his class, and he said, spirituality, in our world, spirituality, what you hear from religion, because I see that's a lot of questions here, what you hear from in religion and what you hear from your mother, from your father, from whatever, it's something like he always says, hairy-fairy, something very not really attainable. Hairy-fairy.
Hairy-fairy.
It's very hairy-fairy.
Okay, you want to go down that line? Fine.
It's very hairy-fairy sometimes. But really, nothing in our world changes. Our world doesn't change. We simply expand our perception. It's like if you take, how sometimes in science class, you have a frog sitting on the table, a dead frog, and you cut it open, you look and you see how everything's connected, how all the little pieces come together, and you see that when all the system works together, the frog operates like it needs to. So it's the same thing a Kabbalist attains a new vision. This say he goes up to another degree, and he's looking down on the system that's called the human society. So it becomes clear to him. So then the next more natural reaction would be, how do I become a partner? How do I become a participant with this system? Now that I know it exists and I want to just be acted upon, because I also see a lot of questions about free choice. How do I participate willingly and also in consciously? So basically, all that to say, in Kabbalah, you realize that you just end up unlearning a lot of things that you've learned before in the past. Just different definitions, like I see here, like Torah, mitzvot.
Actually ask those questions so we can actually nail them.
I've got them all. I got all these set up as well that we're going to ask. So basically, just the process of unlearning. And just to know that this is the natural process of something, because you have definitions for words that you're hearing again, but the definitions are colliding or contradicting to what you're being told here. So of course it's your choice to go if you want to learn something else. If you don't think that it's something that's matching to you, something that doesn't feel right to you, fine. But for those who want a new definition, this is actually, we're able to provide that. So we've got a bunch of questions, and since I kind of just had that small little introduction, there were a bunch of questions about religion, Torah, Jesus again, and praying and meditation.
Yeah.
So I try to put all your questions together. So Dennis from Texas, first of all, says, so in the lesson with Dr. Michael Lightman, you say that he says that he's constantly referring to the Torah. And he says, all the Kabbalists were Jewish. Of course, the Creator didn't want idol worshippers, he explains later, I guess. And so he doesn't want the pagan, you don't want someone entering into a pagan belief system. So how can it be that that we're teaching here Torah, but also that it doesn't matter that it's Torah, that it's not, it doesn't matter that we use the religious term, it's the same term that we use here in Kabbalah. How can those two exist simultaneously?
Guys, everything in life exists according to my approach. Okay, how I define things. Chocolate for some people are very nice. For some people, it's death. Okay, because if he's got, I don't know, some sickness and they can't take sugar, for some people it's a great treat, they love it. Some people, if they touch it, it's death. Okay, so life is a matter of building an approach. Torah comes from two words. One, it comes from the word light, or in fact, Torah. It means illumination. And it also comes from the word manual, Torah. Okay, in fact, we've got it. Here we have, for example, outside there's a cupboard with some electrical devices in there, and on the cupboard it says, this is a manual, and it's the same word, Torah. It's like Torah. Okay, so Torah comes from two words: light, illumination, and the user manual. What I get from the book gives the book its name, not the book's name. If I get the light, which is this higher level of consciousness, from what I study, then that book for me is a Torah. So our Torah, when we say we're studying the Torah, we're studying Baal HaSulam, we're studying Rabash, we're studying Ari, and we're studying Rashbi, right? Bar Shimon, okay? Rabbi Bar Yochai Shimon. Shimon Bar Yochai, sorry. Okay? So the writers of the Zohar. We're studying their books because from there we're attaining spirituality. And for us, that's Torah. So you have to really define things according to what you get. So spirituality is a higher level of attainment. And if I'm not getting a higher level of attainment, but the book's name is Torah, is that really Torah for me? Nope. It's just a book with a name called Torah. Is it a holy book? If I'm not getting any holiness from it, can I call it a holy book? Will a piece of paper have some kind of force in it if I don't get that force out of it? And this is the biggest misconception we have in religion. They give power to a piece of paper, where we give power to what we get from what's written on that piece of paper. Okay? So yes, there are mutual words. However, also one more correction, not all Kabbalists were Jewish. Adam was not Jewish. Noah had no idea about what Judaism was. Abraham wasn't even around when the Jewish religion came about. In fact, the Jewish religion came about after the destruction of the Second Temple. Before that, there was no Rabbanut even. Nothing to do with Judaism at all. David, King David, his mother wasn't Jewish. Akiva, which all of our Torah comes from, he wasn't Jewish. He wasn't from the tribes. He was just a guy who lived in Israel. He studied and he became a Kabbalist, and he was the guy despite the fact that he was not Jewish, not from the tribes, taught everyone the Torah before the destruction of the Second Temple. Okay? So, Kabbalah and religion have nothing to do with each other at all. Has nothing to do with the Jewish religion either, whatsoever. If it had, would Chris come and study? Would I come and study? Would anybody come and study? I don't think so. Okay? If we look at the 21st century, you'll see that religious approaches are the same. Okay? Religion doesn't matter what religion. Every religion has their own way, and the person who belongs to that religion thinks he's the right. He's in the right. Okay? This is why you get fundamentalist Muslims, you get fundamentalist Christians, you get fundamentalist Jewish people, you get fundamentalist Sikhs. You'll get them everywhere. Okay? Because a religious guy is not about the religion. It's a personality. Being religious is a human characteristic. If he was born in another religion, he would have been the same thing, just in a different religion. So Kabbalah has nothing to do with it. And it's best you draw that line right now, because it'll confuse the hell out of you. Next question.
So I think that answers Sergey from Kazakhstan's question, who said, so is the Siddur relevant for Kabbalists, and it's relevant also for non-Jewish Kabbalists? We just heard that it doesn't matter if you're Jewish, if you're not Jewish, doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter if you are Jewish and you start studying Kabbalah, does it have a certain meaning for you? And actually, in fact, we've heard that it can be more confusing because you're using words that you're already familiar with, and you already have a preconceived notion, say when we talk about partzuf, when we use the word partzuf, describing face. For someone who doesn't understand the Hebrew language, or it doesn't understand, or doesn't have anything to do with Judaism, that can be something much more confusing and having to unlearn, like I spoke about earlier. And so Arturo from Miami says, how do you pray in Kabbalah? Is it the same as religion, even though we just talked about how nothing is similar in religion? But how do we pray here? Obviously, there's something to do with praying, so what is it?
Okay, guys, when do we pray? We generally pray if we want something, right? Because if you don't want something, why would you pray? What are you going to pray for? Being thankful isn't praying, really. Okay? Praying means I want something. So I go to wherever people go, church, mosque, synagogue, I don't know, any temple, or you might just sit on a park bench and pray your guts out. And, okay, praying in Kabbalah is not something that you're taught by reading a book. Okay, so for example, they open a book and they read a prayer from the book. Is it really relevant to what you're feeling right now? Is it really relevant to the sensations you're going through? Prayer in Kabbalah means what my heart desires. That's all. If a person wants to have a new job and he can't find one, he goes and prays. Okay, he goes to a prayer. He goes to pray in a church, mosque, whatever. If he wants the next world, he goes and prays because he doesn't know what's going to happen after death. So he goes, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen after death, but I definitely don't want to go to hell. Because in his head, somebody put that there's a concept called hell. Does he know there is one? No, he doesn't know. But he prays that he doesn't want to go there. So he's actually praying and wasting his time for a place that he doesn't even know it exists. It doesn't exist, by the way, I'll let you know right now. Okay, praying in Kabbalah means that my heart desires something. That's a prayer. We are a desire machine. We're desiring things all the time. This is our nature. And we want fulfillment. So let's say I love chocolate. Okay, if one day we end up meeting, or you guys come here for a congress or something, and you want to do me a favor, get me a nice chocolate. I love chocolate. So right now I want chocolate, and that's actually a prayer. We need to understand that we need to come to a state where my heart and my head reconcile. If they don't, I'm going to be living in La La Land. And that's basically what many of the teachings in the world are. They put you into a mode of something that's going to happen after you die, when nothing's going to really happen, okay? And they feel that you need to pray for these things. Kabbalists are saying, don't be childish. Grow up. Start to look at life concretely and start to solve this problem of the purpose behind life. Nobody's going to fry us on the other side when you die, okay? Because just like we don't give birth to our children and we don't put them on the barbecue when they're naughty, God's not going to put us on a barbecue if we're naughty. Right? It's just not logical. Okay? So we need to get a new angle of approach. Okay? And it's a good thing you guys are asking. We need to nail these questions. And we need to start with a clean page and a clean plate when we're approaching this study. All right? Any other questions? Anything on religion, whatever, you must ask so we clean this up.
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve are desires inside of me. Eve is also inside of man. Eve is a new level of desire that kind of awakens in me. Yeah, it's true. Adam
for the better, Eve, for the better as well.
For the better,
always.
Absolutely. Adam and Eve actually are a spiritual concept. And that spiritual concept is what we need to really build. It's called a soul with two parts. A part that bestows and a part that receives. When they come together, just like in this world, when a man and a woman come together, they complete each other. Okay? Adam and Eve are actually completion of man's soul in spirituality, where the person, the individual, can build a relationship with nature or creator or God, Allah, Elohim, call him whatever you want. There's just one force acting here. This thing called Adam and Eve inside of me is a way of building a relationship with this force that's outside of me, and that actually relationship builds my participation in the whole of reality. So I don't end up living like a child. Imagine having a child, God forbid, that's growing in size but still has the mind of a 5-year-old. Okay? So the Creator doesn't want us to be like that. The Creator wants us to be like Him. So this Adam and Eve concept is how I blend the nature of giving and taking in such a way that I become as wise and as powerful as the Creator to participate in the whole of creation. Yeah. I know I like the forest story too. They walk around in the forest
Garden.
and stuff like the Garden of Eden or whatever. Nice story.
Butt flaps with the leaves like covering.
Yeah,
and everything.
Exactly. Well, I don't tell that part to my kids when they're going to bed. But yeah, the Adam and Eve story is a nice bedtime story.
So then, what about all the other articles? Oh, sorry, that was Paradzai. Thank you again for sending in
Where's
loads
he
of
from?
questions. Oh, Paradzai from Zimbabwe. Remember,
Nice.
he was our number one question asker last time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so Jose Carlos from Spain is asking, so what about the Bible, like all the other stories, all the other books, and whatever else goes on there? What's going on?
Nothing's going on. Nothing's going on at all. Just think about it, guys. If something was going on, we would have by now, after thousands of years actually, we would have gotten something out of us to improve ourselves. However, we have not.
Same mistakes over and over.
Exactly. Humanity is going through changes. Religion has not adapted to any of that. While Kabbalists are telling us from beginning, saying, guys, the whole of creation is a process of evolution. A process of becoming something much beyond than our existence here. So this process of change is constant. None of those books will give us anything. We won't even understand what we're reading. What stories can we possibly relate to in the 21st century about a book written 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 or whatever years ago if I'm not in his perception? not going to happen. And because it's not going to happen, and it is not happening, in every religion there are thousands of different sects with different understandings of the same thing. And for them, within their own religion, that is the truth. It's in every religion. There is nothing to get. You know, God forbid, I'm not kind of demising religion or anything, but, you know.
It's just confusing, and you got to set it straight.
Exactly. We have to, you know, get a straightforward, level-headed approach here. Okay, we can't just go around, sitting around, reading stuff and believing what other people tell us and expecting that that's the truth. How does anyone who taught us those stories know that that's how it was? He doesn't know either. How did he come up with it? Because somebody else told him, some other wise guy. And for thousands of years, you know, it's like that little game kids play. You know, you whisper a sentence to the person next to you, and by the time it gets to the 10th person, it's a completely different sentence.
Telephone.
Is it? Yeah, the telephone game, whatever. And that's what religion is. Pretty much gossip. What else?
So, I hope that answers the question here, James from Nigeria, about Jesus. This is the last Jesus question, but I guess it's just because, you know, Christianity was so popular and it's everywhere. It's like, if it's so popular, then why haven't we somehow connected Kabbalah to Christianity somehow? Or
because it has no connection to any religion, guys. You need to understand. Kabbalah comes from Adam. He was in no religion. He was the first Kabbalist. What religion? No prophet even, right, wrote their own books. It was all written after they died. All of them. So you guys tell me, who's writing the books? Okay? So we need to understand, this is a very straightforward approach. There was no religion during Adam. No religion. Adam was not religious. He wasn't Jewish, Christian, or Muslim. Noah, he wasn't religious. Abraham, same old. Moses, he grew up in the palace of Pharaoh. What religion are we talking about? The guy was like Prince Charles in the palace. It's like everything is mine and it's all good. But from that place of having everything, he felt that he had nothing in life. It was just like nothing. You know, a lot of rich people go through depression. Same as probably Moses went through that as well. I have everything and I feel like I have nothing. That kind of guy asks the purpose of life. How come I have everything and I'm still not happy? That's how Moses became a Kabbalist. This is how people become Kabbalists, guys. Got nothing to do with your religion. It's got nothing to do with your faith. And it's got nothing to do with any guy who's religious. Trust me. Yeah.
So what about meditation?
Meditation, guys, for your physical body, I've heard it has positive things, but it's for the physical body.
Stress relief.
Yeah, it's good stress relief. You know, instead of taking Prozac, do 30 minutes of meditation. And it calms you down, but it's a bodily thing. We're talking in Kabbalah about something completely beyond the body. So we need to start approaching this wisdom as such. Yeah.
Okay, so done with religion. I think it's clear. If you can still send questions in if you have any about religion.
Absolutely. Don't let any question sit in you and feel embarrassed to ask about it, because this is very important that your person kind of, gets everything straight in this wisdom. Mm-hmm.
And it'll naturally settle. You'll start to really see. I'm telling you, Mulu will say the same. Anyone who studies, it's not about convincing and saying to someone, listen, this is just how it is. The religion is this way. It's not that. It's not religion, and you try to convince yourself somehow. Just things become much more clear, and you feel them. It's like, well, how do you know that you love someone? I don't know. It's my feeling. I feel like love. How can you You can't tell me that I don't feel this certain way. It's the same kind of thing that happens to a person when they start undergoing changes. So we're going to move on to a quick question about free will, maybe, because I think this is something. Jose Carlos, again from Spain, says, how do you notice the right time that you have free will?
Free will means I have two states which are opposite each other, and I am in between. For that to happen, a person needs to have the dot in the heart in life. Our nature, which we're going to study in the wisdom of Kabbalah, we're basically studying our nature and the general nature, and how we are in that nature, living in that nature. Basically, if we are only living inside our current situation without a dot in the heart, okay, without seeking spirituality, what am I going to do? I'm just going to want things. As I want things, I will want to fulfill my desires, right? This is how we live. That's not free choice. People on the street think they have free will because they can choose what to eat from a menu in a restaurant. That's not free will. If I put 4 different dishes in front of a dog, it will smell each one, just like we're looking at a menu, right? Sniffing what's good for me. The dog will sniff each one. He will eat what he prefers. And that's a dog's free choice, and which is pretty much our free choice here as well. And that's not called free choice in Kabbalah. Free choice means that I have the choice between 2 different natures. And then I can think about choosing. Okay? How to fill my stomach is not free choice. That we will come to learn in the next in the course. It's a very important topic. Freedom of will is like one of the basic foundations. It's like the pillar stones. So we will get to learn that in depth. I think there's even 2 lessons on that. So just stick with us on that one. It's not, we don't have enough time right now. It's 15 minutes to go into it. But freedom of will basically can only happen if I have 2 natures that are opposing and in conflict.
That's a good point that we're going to talk about free choice in a lesson by itself. And a lot of these questions you guys are asking are questions that we will have basically our own lesson dedicated to them. Not just this semester, but we'll also return on subjects that need to have a little bit more in-depth conversation to get more precise questions. Also answer those in later semesters, even if you stick with us. So a lot of these questions, guys, the questions we see all the same questions all the time. Sometimes they're a little bit more worded, more precisely, and it makes more sense maybe to a person that's coming from a much deeper place maybe. But we're used to all these questions. And so we've built courses to really touch on, and not just what is Kabbalah and what isn't Kabbalah, but in every category that maybe you heard about, praying or desire, or what else did we talk about, spirituality, all these things that they all seem like floating ideas and we don't know how to tie them together. This course and the following semesters will put all those together, and it will become much more clear. That isn't to say don't send questions, because of course the questions help us direct the lessons, and it gives us an idea of where you guys are really coming from and what to put emphasis on. You guys sent a bunch of questions today, and we're not going to have time to get through all of them, so save them, write them down. But I can almost guarantee you that they will be a little bit different next time if you continue to watch other lessons, or more material, things will become more clear or more confusing. So they'll probably change within that period of time. But until then, do we have announcements or something? I actually didn't get announcements.
So that's it with the questions?
I don't know. Don't we only have 1 minute? Or do you want to take 1 minute right now?
No, we have another 15 minutes.
Oh, I thought it was till 10:15. Oh, great.
It's till 11:30.
Great. Let's keep going. So then we have, there's 2 questions from Paradzi and Jose Carlos from Spain. Mm-hmm. They're both asking about the point in the heart. Basically the same question. Does that, this feeling of being really pushed on fire to want to find out the meaning of life and what's Kabbalah, does that kind of burn out eventually? Because Jose Carlos also said he felt it when he was a kid, which is also very common, by the way, having it as a kid because you're much more fine and not a lot of ego, and you feel much more closer to nature actually at that point. So he says, I felt it as a kid, and at 40 years old, now it came back. So is it going to go away again?
That's a very nice question. Now look. What happens in life is, because when we have this inclination as a child, we ask generally our parents. All right, we ask, hey, why are we living? Most kids ask that question, actually. And we don't get an answer to it. And because we don't get an answer, because our parents didn't know, and it's not really their fault, okay? But because our parents didn't know, and nobody around us really knows about it, so they gave us a little story like they do in religions and so on. And basically what we do is we suppress that. And then we forget about it. Because as we grow up, life kind of, lures us in with desires and the things we need to do in life. I have to get a job, finish school or whatever, all these things. And they kind of cloud us until it awakens again. And when it does, it actually awakens stronger. Because why? You went through some stuff in life that kind of really whipped you, right, let's say, and it kind of brought it up. So once it comes back up again, now it's very important to keep the flame alive. Because, it can disappear. So freedom of will, also a topic will cover that. The thing I wanted to touch on today was the important thing with the dot in the heart is something we have to grow. It's not going to happen automatically. It's not going to happen by itself. This is something we need to work on. This is something we need to really grow, foster, and we need to develop. And if you don't develop that, just like any talent in life, let's say I have a talent for music, okay? But let's say I'm not practicing. Can I be good? Can I be expected to play Bach, Beethoven, or Mozart if I simply don't practice? Okay, even if I'm the most talented guy, it won't happen. So we have to work on it. We have to really grow it like a little baby, just like we take care of babies, like pretty much 24/7, right? So this thing needs to be taken care of very, very diligently.
So what is the point in the heart, Igor from Croatia asks?
That's a very good question. A point in the heart starts off with a question. Why am I living? What's the purpose of life? Okay? When a person starts asking these questions, this is awakening. Because at the end of the day, what are we in our essence? We're just a desire to be fulfilled. Right? We just want to be fulfilled in life. These questions come up because we have the lack of fulfillment. We don't feel we're fulfilled. So these questions are kind of igniting this new desire. It's kind of pinching us to find out why we're living. And that's the birth of that inclination.
So then, again, the paradzi does everyone have a point in the heart? Or
everybody has a point in the heart, but it needs to be awoken. If it doesn't awaken, there's nothing to talk about.
Florin apparently is from the UK, so thank you for responding there. Is there any connection between Kabbalah, sacred geometry? I think we pretty much talked about that. Those are more mathematical, and it's again going back to science. What does science see? It looks for patterns in nature. It wants to understand nature. And
what exactly is the question, though?
About Kabbalah, sacred geometry, golden ratio, all the things. It's like, everything is one, everything is together, and it basically just evidence that there's some kind of mutual oneness, kind of something in nature, and these kind of just express it. So is Kabbalah related to that in any way?
Kabbalah does use numerology, but maths is a language. And you won't be able to attain spirituality with mathematics. Okay, maths or gematria, numerology, was something the Kabbalists used to express an attainment. Okay, and this is they used it as a language, but it is interesting to go into. But what good is geometry if you haven't really attained the essence of the thing? So what we need to first attain is the forces acting, the spiritual forces acting. And once we attain that, then we can see how this all fits. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like I said, it's a language. And we need to learn the language. So first we need to learn, and then we can use.
Hartwig from South Africa, a large part of his family passed away, and he wants to know, are they still existing? Are they reborn in other bodies? Where are they?
Okay, it's a good question. It's a good question. I have the same problem. A lot of my family passed away too. We have to look at life not like bodies passing away, but like an accumulation of impressions taken from life that influences all of us. For example, if I have, let's say, in my small finger, a little pain, okay? It's in my small finger, it's in an irrelevant place, but it's just bugging me, okay? It's like the whole body feels that irritation. But the whole body feels it. So in humanity, we're also in this system. The problem is we don't feel the whole system. So whatever happens, it feels like, for example, they passed away or they left us. It feels like they're gone. But the truth is, in creation, nothing disappears. Because creation, all in all, we'll get to discover in Kabbalah as well, is like a sphere of feelings, not physical bodies like this protein sack of meat that we're living in. It isn't. It's an accumulation of sensations, feelings, thoughts that we're actually living inside. So nobody really passes away. The process of death is a situation where a person kind of reformats him or herself. Pretty much like restarting or rebooting a computer. And the reason that happens, life cycles happen, is that what we need to understand that a person cannot sustain a continuous life of suffering. Because sometimes the question comes up, well, why don't we just live until we get this job done? Because none of us would want to live at all. We'd all commit suicide. Okay, you see how much suffering there is in life. And you see the rate of suicides going up, the rate of people in depression and so on. Why? Because if we were to live one long life cycle until we came to the purpose of life, we'd never get there. We'd all just kill ourselves, pretty much in the first phases of life, because we'd never be able to tolerate the amount of suffering and the frustration. So what happens is life gives us new beginnings. And these new beginnings have a very good foundation, which are the accumulation of all my experiences from my previous lives, which I take on and are now embedded in me as instincts. And now I can use them to take myself up to a higher level. So nobody really passes away, and I understand where you're coming from. Because we're living in the physical body, we feel like people are dying. But in spirituality, in actually creation, there is no death. There is only a process of development, and that's how we need to really take a look at things. Yeah.
Okay, great. So that's about the bodies. Yes, I'm just trying to get the general.
Until you get
questions.
a general thing, if you guys can show the screen here, what we have, if you can just show the screen. I've just put a few points here. Okay. Can you guys show the screen? Yep, thank you. The wisdom of Kabbalah, in a nutshell, guys, I'm just pretty much in 5 bullet points. You might just want to note them down or take a print screenshot so you got this in front of you. The things that we're really doing in the wisdom of Kabbalah is attainment of knowledge, which is the system of the universe, actually the system of creation. Okay? And then we've got creation, its process, development of creation, the whole process that we're going through. I just wanted to mention it right now because we've answered our friend from South Africa about life and death. But creation is a process, and this is what we need to understand. And the third point is the laws of interaction of spiritual and material worlds and their consequences. This is what we really don't understand. We're baffled. On the one hand, we have this sensation that something exists. On the other hand, we can't put our finger on it. So we're constantly mind-boggled and confused. These things we need to reconcile. So Kabbalah gives us that. The other one is the circulation of the souls, the essence of the soul, what it really is, and how we can learn to feel it and live inside of it and be actually part of a whole instead of being like this little individual in a box, how we can be a part of one big whole and feel the whole essence of the whole creation rather than being just a little dot in it, like a drop in the ocean. And the governance, the study of this world. We need to also study this world to understand that why things happen in this world and how they impact me and how I can learn from everything that happens to me in order to build this higher level of consciousness and existence. Otherwise, we're going to be slapped from right to left by life all the time, as we have been for thousands of years. I think they did a little research in history of humanity. There was only, from thousands and thousands of years, there was only 257 years that there were no wars. The rest has always had wars. It's an, mind-baffling thing that how we haven't learned from so much suffering. So this accumulation has finally, like Kabbalists said, Kabbalists have written in their books, have brought us to this generation where a lot of people are saying, enough is enough. What the hell is this all for? Yeah.
So Sergey from Kazakhstan, he really wants to understand. I guess he didn't get an answer about prayer, what it is, and how does one pronounce it. So I guess it's still confusing. It's something, you said that it's something that desire of a person. You said we're a desire machine. And so I think it's still not clear that anything that I want, that is a desire. So if I'm praying, say before in my past life, I was talking to God or something somewhere because I really wanted to succeed in my next test in university, and so that was my prayer. But also, I wake up in the morning and my stomach is empty and I'm like dying for some food. Is that also a prayer? Is that what you're saying? It doesn't matter whatever's in my belly. That's what my prayer is.
What is the desire? Okay, write this down in a sentence. A prayer is the desire of a person. It is not a string of words coming out of my mouth simply because somebody wrote it in a religious book and I'm reciting it. That is not a prayer. Okay? A prayer is what I want inside as I feel, which is my desire. That's a prayer. All right? If it's still not clear, let me know, because we want to nail these things before we start. It's a good opportunity. We have, these two lessons have been a blessing. It's a good opportunity to kind of.
Oh, I remember now a way that Rob described it one time, that imagine that there's this projector projecting all of your thoughts and desires onto the screen for everyone to see around you, and that would be what you are requesting, and everyone would be able to see all of your inner thoughts and desires. Those are all your prayers. Even a thief prays so that he will have a successful,
successful night stealing,
breaking in and entering. So it's very simple, and every person is the same. That's why Kabbalah is for everyone. Everyone has the same exact nature and the way that they handle their desires and their thoughts. It's all the same, guys. We're in one big boat, one big eternal world here together, eventually. Omrid from Iran, last question. How long does it take for Kabbalah students to feel the spiritual world?
Well, it depends on your effort, doesn't it? I had friends who finished university in 3 years. I had a friend who finished 2 departments in 4 years, and I ended up finishing it in 6.5 years. So it depends on your effort, it depends on your commitment, just like with everything else in life. Okay? The laws of nature will not change. Everything depends on a person's efforts, and effort pays off. the beautiful thing about Kabbalah is you don't have to be smart. You don't have to have a special talent to study Kabbalah. You don't need any special attributes. You don't need to be a special person. It's just a desire. Anyone who desires to study can come and study, and according to their effort, they can advance. I've seen this on many continents. I've traveled with, to conferences all over the world. I've been all around the world, and I've met people from, studying Kabbalah from all around the world. I've been teaching, for the past 8-9 years, and met a lot of my students. Some of them even moved here, and it all depends on your effort. And I can guarantee you, just like with anything in life, one who perseveres and studies gets to the results.
I just wanted to, one time, we didn't really have a chance this lesson to do it, but we have about 50 connections: Angola, Czech Republic, Deutschland, El Salvador, Finland, Germany, Ghana, Iran, Italy, Kazakhstan, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Nigeria, South Africa, Spain, South Korea, Sweden, Gambia, Turkey, UK, United States, and Zimbabwe, and a couple others who didn't say their location. So if you guys are asking, which I did see, you're right, yes, you did ask many times, when are we going to get our tens, when are we going to meet virtually? So those will, in the next few weeks, we'll give you a meeting point. That'll be clarified for you later on.
The Education Center, guys, the management of the Education Center will organize that. Don't rush. What we first want to do is build some foundations, okay? And upon that solid foundation, then you'll be able to get into the practical work and the practical, study of Kabbalah. But very, very important. Let's first learn to crawl and walk before we run. But the Education Center, we have a method, a nice flow structure where everybody can integrate to that. Once we get once we get over the first 2 semesters and get our knowledge base and approach fixed up, then we'll be rolling. We'll get some practical stuff done with the tens and the applications. And even before that, there'll be opportunities to attend congresses as well, and we'll let you know, and you can even come to those as well. That'd be great.
Yeah, we've had a lot of experience with getting people together and doing virtual studies together, and we've seen a lot of good progress with that. But we also know not to introduce it too early. So you'll also get a recorded lesson for today. We'll send you a link for that in your email. And like you said, next week is the first official day.
We hope you enjoyed this lesson as well. These 2 little introductory lessons to the course, and hopefully I'll see you guys next weekend with Chris again.
All right. See you then.
Bye now.
Bye.